Well, welcome back to the 100 Movements podcast. This is episode 4, I'm pretty sure, in a series that we are doing here at the 100 Movements podcast on the book Kingdom Contours, written by Jeremy and Monica Chambers. So super glad that you're with us. That's right. Throw those books up there. For those of you not watching, they have the books, and we are encouraging you to go pick up the book, track along with us. Hopefully grab a few people, read the book together, wrestle these ideas out. And the basic context, I won't take too long here, we're going to dive right in, is just what does it look like for us to contextualize the movemental DNA, mDNA as we call it. What does it look like for us to make that practical in our life? And the pattern that we've been following in these episodes is to look at the foundation of the mDNA, the specific element, to explore the paradigms, and then to look at a practical tool or two that you can think about in your own context. What would it look like for us to embody this part of the mDNA? So if you haven't been tracking with us, we'd encourage you to go back, watch those videos. If you're week 4 or whatever you're doing in your community looking at this, glad you're here. Missional Incarnational Impulse, that's today. So enough of me, Jeremy and Monica, glad you're here again. Let's do the foundation. Missional Incarnational Impulse. What are we talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for having us again.
Yeah.
Yeah, happy to be here. Well, so we actually have a lot of foundations that we put in on this chapter, and we were looking over it and was like, oh, where do we even start? But one of the things that we were talking about, it's throughout the chapter, but it's not a particular, like, identified foundation. It's the foundation of patience,
Mm.
right? So, like, when we start with the fruit of the Spirit, patience. What does it say? Against the fruits, there is no law, right?
Yeah.
Where the Spirit of God is present, patience overflows in us. And when we approach the idea of a missional lifestyle where we are engaging in the mission of God and we are moving outward into the world with great intentionality, strategic thinking, where we have a goal, like we're a little bit driven, right? And it's a good thing, right? We're out to do good in the world. But if we go without patience, and I think for those listening, I mean, in our life, we've seen this. When you do mission without patience, you just sabotage the whole thing. You start to force things.
Yeah. Or
Um,
rush things.
yeah, and you become inattentive. When there's impatience, we lose perspective on what the Lord is doing.
Mm.
You remember that verse where Jesus says, I only do what I see the Father doing? Right? Like Jesus himself had a patient, like he waited. He waited to
Yeah.
see what the Lord was doing, like what the Father was doing before he engaged.
Yeah.
How much more do we need patience?
Yeah. And I think with the missional incarnational impulse, there is a obviously the point of it is that we are with. Jesus became flesh, was with people, and so then he sends the disciples, he sends us as his disciples to do that same thing. And so I think an important foundation with this is the dynamic of, to Jeremy's point of Jesus only did what he saw the Father doing, or he only spoke what he heard the Father speaking. We have to have, which is just the cool thing about mDNA, that it all works together, right? Like we have to have an abiding with Jesus as we are with others. And so as we are with our neighbors, as we are with other Christians, as we are with just like even just the places themselves that we are in, if we are there with an attentiveness, not only to the people that we are with, but also to God himself, then that's where we can be patient, because we're actually, that attentiveness creates a waiting on God so that then we can do once we discern what needs to be done
Yeah.
or say what needs to be said.
Yeah. And timelines are then really critical. Uh, I've been throughout my life, even in my teen years, I've been in all sorts of different ministries. And there was one that had a particular, like, it was like a notches on the belt mentality. It was like, go out and like get as many conversions as possible. And like, to be fair, through that ministry, I do believe like there was a lot of people whose lives were dramatically changed. I mean, I've some incredible stories that kind of came out of that time,
Yeah.
but also it was the posture in which we operated. It was sort of like there was a little pride there of like, look what we've done. Um, and then there was an insensitivity
Mm.
on our part towards uh, the timelines,
Yeah.
right? So, in Mark chapter 4,
Mhm.
Jesus talks about the sower who plants the seed. And everyone thinks of the parable of the soils there, but there's another parable there where the farmer plants the seed and then he goes and he rests. And when he comes back, the seed has grown. And it says he knows not how.
Mm.
And then he's able to reap. But there's this like rest that we can have in the waiting
Mm.
after we've done the work of planting the seed. And a lot of times in missional circles, you've got this like deadline, like how many people did you whatever with in X amount of time?
Right.
How many achievements, how many transactions did you get? And sometimes it takes 30, 40, 50 years in somebody's life before the breakthrough happens.
Mhm.
And if we have a posture of patience, suddenly timelines are less important to us because our success is measured in millennia, not in our lifetime,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so you just have a different perspective.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's good. I resonate with that personally. As you're talking, I was like, I wish we would sort of flip the words, like incarnational missional impulse.
Mm. Mm.
Because I think we get locked in on the first thing we hear instead of the last thing.
Mm.
In Kansas City, in my context, we talk a lot about, um, like Jesus spent 30 years in Nazareth
Right.
before 3 years in power and
Mhm.
signs and wonders and miracles and all of this like amazing stuff. And we say, we typically want the 3 years without the 30.
Right.
Exactly.
90% of his life was in Nazareth. 10% was in like the boom, crazy, all the stuff we want. It's like we shouldn't go after that if we don't have the willingness to spend the 90%.
Yeah.
And that's the incarnation. I mean, the missional is that we're sent, and we want to do that because we live in a culture that disciples us into productivity. But the
Yeah.
incarnation is the depth. It's the work with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a good foundation. I'm really glad that you started with that. Um, were you about to say something, Monica?
Well, I was just going to say to your point that, like, we see that in so many people's lives in Scripture, from Moses to um to Paul
Mhm.
to like these people who
Joseph.
had
Yeah.
Joseph. Yeah, you have like these people who they ended up doing crazy things, right? But they all had periods that were hidden, that seemed, you could say, wasted, but they really weren't. They were the time of like incarnation of depth being created that then God could use.
Yeah. Yeah, so good. So a foundation we're talking about here is patience. Talk to me about the paradigm.
Yeah. It kind of connects.
Mm-hmm.
We got a little paradigm here from Eugene Peterson in his book, The Contemplative Pastor. And he talks about I think his actual words are a conversation already happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever we come across anyone who we first of all we have to acknowledge we don't know what's going on between the Spirit of God and that person. There's a vertical conversation happening, whether the person even knows it, right? The Lord may be sending a message and they're just blind to it, right? But if we go into those conversations assuming that we have all the answers and we know what we have to say, then we might miss out on the conversation that's already happening. And I mean, this radically transforms how we do mission, and it enables us to be truly incarnational, because now we're attentive to what's going on in those that we're ministering to, and actually we start to listen.
Mm-hmm.
We do gospel listening. We're asking, and which is another one of the tools. But we're starting to ask the question: what's the Spirit of God doing here already? How is the gospel at work? The good news. How is the kingdom of God and the work of Jesus already beginning to happen in this person's life or in this people group?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and and it just slows us down. And again, there's patience there. But then I think it gives us time to honor the biblical value of wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I rush in, I'm foolishly addressing things that don't need to be addressed. But if I wait and discern, suddenly I speak with wisdom because I'm honoring the way that the Spirit of God is at work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think with that, there's a dynamic of us actually, like, we really, really value contextualization, and you can't do contextualization without having that part of like listening first.
And there is a lot of contextualization work in this chapter, both for paradigms and tools, by the way.
Yeah, and we have it in that because, again, too often, and you see it even in like missions history, you see the people who just went into a certain culture, they thought that they knew what was necessary, they said certain things were wrong that maybe were just a cultural difference and weren't actually wrong. They said other things were good, but it was their own culture, it wasn't actually the good news. So we see these dynamics, and so the desire of the missional and incarnational impulse is that we are listening long enough to discern what is actually needed here, what is God already doing here, and because of, I think, even American culture, especially in the U.S., there is that, like, well, why would you, again, waste time? I feel like this is an issue that we have to, as Christians in the US, surrender and say, wasting time, what we think wasting time may not actually be a waste at all. And it's exactly what God is wanting us to do. And so spending the time of actually being with, knowing the people, the culture, and sometimes when we've talked about this with people in the US who are maybe interacting with a culture that's similar to what they're used to, they often feel like this is unnecessary. That taking the time to listen or taking the time to contextualize is not necessary. And that's actually not true, because subcultures are everywhere. You could have a neighborhood that has its own subculture. Like when we lived in Richmond, we lived within the city limits, and we would move every couple years purposefully from one neighborhood to the other. They would be a mile or 2 miles apart, maybe not even. And the culture of the little pockets was very different from the other. And if we were just entering being like, well, we know Richmond, then and did the same thing or interacted with the people in the same way, we actually would have missed out on some really beautiful things. And so listening is like some of the most important, which I feel like is a good segue to the tool of listening, of like spending time just like in silence first, listening to yourself and listening to God, because often if we haven't felt like we have been listened to, we won't actually listen to others well. So
Yeah.
spending that time and then actually just practice listening.
Yeah. Yeah. Before you get to the tools,
Yeah. We
the one thing I would add in there is just the man, like digging into that, like for those listening to go like, how much have you considered, do I actually know what would be good news? And if
Mhm.
it fits in a little box that is about this big, that is just about what happens after you die,
Mm.
I don't want to say it's not enough, because I feel like people hear that and it's like, what? What do you mean it's not enough? Like, that's the hope that we'll live eternally with Jesus. It's like, yeah, but the eternal life begins now.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it is that question of what is good news to the people I've been sent to. And I only learn that when I do the incarnating work, which is to learn the stories, the language, the songs, the rhythms, the festivals, the way they mourn, the way they educate, the slang. Like when you learn all of those things, you begin to discern what is the place of brokenness and what would be good news into that brokenness in the here and now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
and that takes a lot of hard work and a lot of patience.
Yeah. And
Yeah, yeah,
time.
totally. Yeah.
Time, and I think also humility, right? Like and that's one of the beautiful things of the good news is that we don't have, because we are beloved, we don't have to get anything from the people we're ministering to in the sense of like value. We interdependence is a beautiful thing to have. But so that's not what I mean, but it's the like, I need you to give me affirmation, or this like I won't feel worthwhile unless you somehow are making me feel that way. And the good news is that because we are beloved already before we do anything, then we can interact with patience, with humility, because we're not trying to suddenly like put a stake in the ground for our own name. And instead we're being with Jesus with others.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. All right, you were ready to go to the tools, so let's talk about it. Let's do
Yeah.
tools.
And I'll just say, for those listening at home, I think part of the expectation here, like I feel like there's so much here that we're kind of taking a little bit of a shotgun approach, like so we're jumping to different topics. However, we are doing it with a very like with an awareness that hopefully these videos are giving you something that you don't get in the book. I mean, they are. But then also, hopefully, those watching will pause and use some of these as prompts for the hard work that you need to do. So if you're with a group or if you're by yourself, like maybe like actually taking some of these prompts and saying, okay, how do I listen?
Hmm.
What could I do to listen more? Um, and I know this is about Kingdom Contours, but our other book, The Art of Missional Spirituality, we do have a series of practices that help the reader to begin to do this kind of listening that we're talking about. And
Yeah.
part of the design of that book is to guide people into the type of missional listening life that we are aspiring towards.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, in terms of the actual tools, sorry, I
That's
get on
no,
that.
man, that's
Yeah.
good. It's always helpful to give context to people for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Um, one tool that I'm always like happy to share, and this is one you may need to pause and think about for your context. We call it like discerning your missional lanes.
Hmm.
Um, and we've had a number of different friends who've used this kind of language. So we didn't come up with this on our own. But it's this idea that you may be called to a missional context um, that is a little different from what you expected. So we identify neighbors, networks, people groups, and places. Some people are like all about their neighbors in their neighborhood. Others are about a people group in their city. Others are about the city, or a place in the city, and others may be very keyed into an affinity group or a network.
Mhm.
And none of these are right or wrong. It's just the question is, who is the Lord calling you to?
Mhm.
And so sometimes people treat their lane as if it's like,
The only one.
yeah, a little elite. So like you'll hear someone who's like, unless you're helping this people group, you're not doing the work of the Lord. I mean, I've had people say that to me, and I was like, well, but what about this? Or like, what about my neighbor? Am I just neglecting? Right.
What about all the other people that don't fit in that narrow category?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so, I mean, yeah, sometimes overly zealous people see their cause as the most important. But if we use this tool, it helps us to, first of all, have respect for the great amount of needs in our local context, and also the amount of needs that we can't get to.
Mhm.
But then it helps us to highlight really the question is like, Lord, who are you calling me to invest the most of my energy into?
Mhm.
And then that sets us free to kind of zero in.
Yeah, I think with this tool, and actually this whole section, discernment is really important. And I think often when we're thinking of the like missional incarnational impulse, people will fall into maybe certain caricatures that they just assume that they have to fall into also. With missional lanes is one of those, where like, oh, well, I saw so and so and all they did was like reach out to their neighbors. So I'm supposed to do that. But maybe where I live is a place that's just like there isn't really much, let's say, grace to be able to connect to my neighbors right now for one reason or another. But at work, I'm having all of these like really good connections with my coworkers. We're hanging out, we're going to parties, we're doing all sorts of things, and there's grace there.
Hmm.
And too many people discount where God is actually using them because they have this caricature that they feel they're supposed to be. So I think both with the contextualization and the discernment of the lanes that God is calling you to, like, just spend time again listening and being aware of where there is grace. Where is God just like moving through you almost in an automatic way that you can't almost control? And that's actually a really good place to kind of reside in. And then like we have had the experience where after a couple of years, so for example, we lived in this one apartment building, and there were 12 apartments, so it was smaller. And at one point, literally everybody knew each other. We were throwing parties all the time. Like everyone was like visiting each other's apartments. It was this beautiful expression of community. And then after about a year, almost everybody moved.
Hmm.
And then the new people that came in didn't really want that. And so at that time, then God was highlighting, we're rock climbers, so he was highlighting rock climbers to us. And so we were like, oh, this is where we're supposed to be now. And so to be also aware of just that in our lives, there's going to be ebbs and flows. And if we keep going back to like the good old days of the one, we may miss out on where God is actually using us right now. And so the missional lanes is also a helpful discernment thing of being like, oh, it used to be this, but now I feel like it's not happening. So where else might it be?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I think two things that I'm pulling out of this. One is the way you said, what feels automatic for you.
Mhm.
That's the impulse piece. Like I have a drive for that, and it comes naturally.
Yeah.
I want, like it's just up and out in this particular lane. The other thing, I don't think it's as explicit that I'm pulling out, but that I think is what you're saying, and you guys can chime back in on this. Is we should be good missional people wherever we go. But if we want to make disciples, I've said this on the podcast before. If we want to make, like in the last episode, or when we talked about becoming the type, I laid in bed last night just imagining this for like an hour, by the way, becoming the type of people that would do the things Jesus did.
Mm,
Mm,
You have to do incarnational work and go deep in a context. It doesn't mean you stopped being a good missionary in that apartment complex where the people didn't want it. I'm
right.
still going to just be Jesus here, but I can't make a disciple here because they get agency in the process. They
Yes.
get agency in the journey. And so the incarnational piece is like, this is the context where I'm doing the disciple making work, the holistic work of disciple making, not just proclaiming good news, which we should do everywhere all the time.
Mhm.
So those are two pieces that really stood
yeah,
out in what you're saying in that.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I love that
So
distinction that you make of like speaking and being good news versus where is the grace to like go deeper and make disciples with people. And yeah,
Mhm.
that's a fantastic distinction.
all right, so last 5 minutes. What's not in the book that you wish was in the book that people need to be thinking about?
Mm.
We're gonna do our what do you say yes to and what do you say no to?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Well, I mean, we could do that, yeah. There we were actually just the three of us talking before we started recording about the difficulty when we have a lot of really good things in our life that we could spend time on. And so what are we saying yes to? What are we saying no to? How appropriately full and maybe not appropriately full our lives end up being because we care about people, and how to be wise in that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, and as I see Jeremy thinking, so I'm gonna chime in while you continue processing whatever thought that was. But it's like that is the discernment piece that you're talking about. It's just like understanding and learning whatever tool you're using to go, how do I discern what the Lord is asking me to say yes to? Where is He already at work in my life? And how can I join Him in that space?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think that's where the prayer component comes in.
Mm.
Um, and maybe that would be prayer is a theme that's been on my mind a lot recently. We're writing a third book right now, and it's on prayer. And I keep coming back to like with every chapter here, I'm like, we needed more on prayer. So
Yeah.
maybe I have like a one track mind around it, but um, real like a real abiding prayer
Mm.
with like it it does enable discernment.
Mm.
I think of and I don't know if it was Martin Luther or someone who was like making the line of like, I have all these things to do and it's like way more than what I normally have to do, so I'm going to increase my prayer time. I'm going to double my prayer time, right? Like in other words, like I'm so busy that I'm actually going to spend more time in prayer, and
Yeah.
it sounds counterproductive, but like really taking time, um,
Mhm.
and that's kind of critical. I think one of the paradigms in here, I think, is called invisible ministry.
Mm.
And we talk about prayer a little bit there, but it's this idea that like a lot of the work we do may never be seen, may never be recognized,
Yeah.
may never be valued the way we wish it would. A lot of For people who are like serving the Lord, a lot of our work goes thankless by others. And so really like in the prayer life, you're tuning in with the Lord, recognizing what the Lord's doing, and also kind of like having that discernment, I think, to know how to like say yes to the right things,
Yeah.
and no, because often we're saying no to a lot of good things because we can't do all of those things. And like in a prayerful posture, we learn to rejoice
Mm.
in our limitations.
Yeah.
It's not a terrible situation that I can't do everything. It's more like, oh, I've got to trust the Lord with what I can't do.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
And not only trusting him with what you can't do, but also trusting that there are others who will be able to do what I can't do. And that's also a really good thing, because now it's the body of Christ working together as opposed to just me having to do it. Something that we've talked a lot about because of this book we're writing is that prayer is collaboration with God. And so it's actually working with, and the missional incarnational impulse is that.
Mm.
It's this dynamic of, I'm not making stuff happen. God is the God who sent and came himself, and then we get to participate in that. And so there is a beautiful collaboration that ends up happening, and also some of the outcomes or the pressure of the limitations and having to say no to things actually end up being a good thing that we can like release because we can trust.
Yeah. Amen. Well, thank you. It's another great episode to explore new questions, ideas. So for those that are tracking along with us, hopefully this is stirring some good conversation in you internally, but also hopefully with those that you're journeying with. So I want to encourage you again, pick up Kingdom Contours and join us on our next episode as we talk about APES culture or apostolic environments. So see you next time.
Yeah.